to the African village. I think that it's deeply important for the village to be in right relationship with one another. And I think that our relationships must be rooted in love and not dominance, that it has to not come from a place of a means of survival, right? We know that there are many black women and folk who stay in relationships because they can't, that true income or the protection or, all the different ways in which, folks have been told that if you ain't got a man, you ain't whatever. And so we have to be able to transform the ways in which we relate to one another, and see and understand each other as humans on a basic level. We're both humans with many capabilities to do many things together.
Okay.
And I think if we are able to situate ourselves and get a right relationship, we're going to be just fine.
Okay, so now, when I'm speaking of survival, I'm talking about surviving throughout eternity. And how do you survive throughout eternity?
I think it's about the legacy in which we build and do together, right? And I think some of what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm making the wrong assumptions and synthesis of what you're saying, is like, how do men and women continue? Is this about a procreation thing? Is this
yes,
about,
ma'am. How do we stay on this earth? Yes, ma'am. How do we stay on this earth?
We just have sex and keep procreating.
Okay, this is PG. This married
child, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Certainly, our ability to continue to build and reproduce together is still very much something that we can do, regardless of the level of our intimate relationship and roles with each other. For sure.
Okay.
And I think that there is. I don't think that black folk I don't see us as in being danger of being extinct by no means. And I think that even as, I know many people who are not in heterosexual relationships but continue to have children. And we know that is not the primary role of women either, right? And oftentimes
it's a male and female thing for sure.
And that's something that we have to be able to shake, because that puts us very much in this position, particularly for men, when we see because this is what white folk do, and white supremacists are in the state house making laws on women's bodies. White men are making laws on women's bodies, right? And so that's not something we want to replicate, but we also know that we can have loving partner relationships with one another, or understand that we have a loving relationship to be able to continue to have children, but be able to do it in a way that's consensual, in the ways that there's shared understanding, and we can be in right relationship, but in the ways in which we do that. My child, she has a father. Are we together now? No, by no means. And we're very clear about, when we did it, we were like, this isn't to be husband and wife. We know that the limits of our friendship is the ability to produce a beautiful child, and what a blessing it has been. And I hope to have more. And so I think that a lot of what the ways in which we've been trained to relate to one another is going to have to shift, because the possibilities of us being able to continue to bring children into this earth, to continue to do that, it has to be on different terms. And I think, and it can be and again, in those terms doesn't mean it takes away from the loving, intimate relationships that people desire to have with one another. That we need more than anything. If children ever come from that, we have to be able to be in loving, right relationship with one another.
Yes. That's kind of like a first that I've heard somebody put it that way. And I appreciate your contribution. I do. And that's a little different for me, but that's fine. I appreciate your what you bring to the table and your information, and I think is great. You are a knowledgeable woman for sure. And
that's a black queer feminist lens.
What's
That's
that?
a black queer feminist. That's a black queer feminist lens and ideology from which I speak from as well. My own personal experience, but also, just how I enter the conversation. And I think if we can be expansive in the ways in which, we're approaching some of these things, where we're like, these seem like challenges. How are we gonna figure out? Because if we're not producing, then we're not gonna live. No, yes we are, and it's possible. But we just have to change the way, the norms that we've been conditioned to think around. And that's why it's important that queer and trans folk and those who have oftentimes been on the margins of black life, if you will, must be a part and engage in the liberation agenda. When people say the LGBTQ people have an agenda, I'm like, of course we do. Of course we do. It is black freedom. It is anti-capitalist. It is prison industrial complex. It's an abolitionist vision. And that's what a black queer feminist lens gives us. And it gives us the expansiveness to think about how we be in different relationship with each other and not put gender on the back burner for the sake of race. Because as a black queer mother, I bring my full self to this conversation. And so we bring our full selves as we're thinking about what does liberation look like for all of us. And so when people say, what come first, black or woman? I'm all of those things at the same time, and so that is what informs the possibility of liberation and the vision of liberation,
Well, can I add to this?
Please.
Well, see, everybody, I have conversations with all, the people that I communicate with. And we don't always agree on the thought process of each other. We're as an individual, each person, has their right to think the way they want to think.
Mm-hmm.
And what I deal in like psychology and understanding. And what I say, matter of fact, I was going to write a paper on it. People have to justify what they do to make themselves feel okay and feel, all right. Because, people are different. Like I'm not a Christian per se. If I am a Christian, it's natural. If I am a Christian, and and I differ from the people that try to recruit me. They try to tell me that I have to think a certain way in order to be okay, and to your internal, your beyond life, into death, where your spirit is going to go, and this and that. And I'm like, how do people know specifically what's going to happen when you pass away? So how are you going to tell me the way I'm living that I'm going to go to hell? So it's just people's ideology. What they think is right is what they think is right. But like we're talking now, there has to be an evolutionary type thinking to get us out of what we're in, because everything Miss Mary do, everything with Rigo, Rasaki do. I use another name on here, so it's Rasaki Mascani. Everything that I do is what I do. Everything that you do is what you do. Now, I do subscribe to private, your private life and then your public life. There's a difference there. What Miss Mary does with her private life is what she does. And what I do with my private life is what I do. But the thing is, when we have to deal in public and with each other, you have a village concept. We got to be able to be self-sufficient and be able to get along in a manner of humanity, which is beyond the scope of what's going on now. I have a saying. I say man is not far from the cave, because and when I say man, I'm saying woman too. So it's the same, man, woman. I say that because we don't know how to act. I'm talking about collectively. We really don't know how to act, so we're still primitive beings. That's my opinion. We're primitive because we don't know how to resolve peacefully. We don't know how to do things. But that's just my opinion. So I'm gonna stop talking there. And is there anything else that you want to add to this interview? Because I'm gonna look back on this and I'm gonna say, wow, she's very knowledgeable and has some great points. So is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I wanna leave the listeners and Black folks. I believe in being in deep study. My elders and folk who mentor me, like, you gotta be in study often, and not just the same, folks who think like you, da 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 da. And I certainly believe that, and so I'm so excited to dig into this new website, Produce Justice, that you just put me onto. So thank you, comrade, for that. And I want to be able to offer a few things. Bell Hooks has an incredible piece called "The Will to Change," "The Will to Change" by Bell Hooks. And it's talking a lot about Black men and their relationship to patriarchy, which I think has been essential in the ways in which I come into my analysis, and also my practice of the way in which I'm in relationship with men, and the ways in which, one of my comrades was like, if we're saying Black men have to unlearn patriarchy, who you think gonna teach them? We got to be able to extend ourselves. And it always frustrates me when I hear people say, particularly as it relates to Black people talking to each other, saying, hey, you can go Google X, Y, and Z if you want to know about queer trans people, or you can go Google. No. We got to be able to be in dialectical relationship. We need to be able to sit by the fire. We need to be able to convene at the family barbecues and engage in discourse and dialogue. On top of that study, because that is part of the study, is to be able to exchange ideals and be in healthy debate and principle struggle with one another. So I want to make sure folks check that out, Bell Hooks, the Will to Change. And then I also want to leave, there's a set of work this brother, his name is Richie, I forget his last name, but it's called Feminist in Cell Block Y. And it's a documentary that's showing the work. He recently got released, maybe about 2 years ago now, but work that he was doing with brothers locked up. I believe it was at San Quentin. But either way, doing some amazing work with brothers locked up on the inside that I think folks should also check out. And the work that Black women were doing in D.C. back in the 90s, I believe, the D.C. Rape Crisis Center, and they began to go, Black women who they themselves were had experienced childhood sexual abuse and rape on different levels, would begin to go into the jails and talk to men who were serving life for rape, and begin to do that work. And so I think that if we can, there's some really great models that folks have done and that folks are doing. There's a set of work that's happening inside of the Movement for Black Lives called Black Men Build, where, they just launched this program, and it was like 800 men on the first call, who are trying to, struggle around conversations around patriarchy and gender-based violence, and, unearth some of these tensions, but also, help all of us. Because it helps all of us when all of us do our self work to transform from the ways in which white supremacy, patriarchy, all the things, how they show up in us, And I also will say, this is something Spirit put on my heart some years ago, when it literally keeps me up late at night, but also wakes me up early in the morning, in terms of the mandate for Black people. And the mandate for Black people in this time is to avenge the suffering of our ancestors, to earn the respect of future generations, and to be willing to be transformed in the service of the work. That is our mandate in this time, and the one that I live by, and continue to, challenge myself, do my self-work, be in relationship with folk, because we know it's not isolation that's going to get us free. It is our coming together. It's isolation that really kills us, real talk. is our isolation, our inability to gather our resources together to be self-sustaining. The isolation that prevents us from getting out of our beds when we hear the neighbors fighting and intervening before the police come. It is our isolation that prevents us from growing food to share with one another, so our folks aren't having to get groceries at the Family Dollar. So it's our isolation is what we must grapple with in this time, which is a core tenet of capitalism. That's the values of capitalism that we must contest. And so,
Yes.
I just want to leave that. I just want to leave those final thoughts and some of those resources to share, and just deeply, deeply appreciate the time and space to be in dialogue with you. I really do. I certainly appreciate it.
Okay, well, when I heard you speak, I said I need to speak with this sister. I really do. And what I could say is, I'm always thinking about, I like to come up with terminology in my head and slogans. So I would say that we're in evolution to humanity, because Neely Fuller said that white supremacy and justice can't live in the same space, and you can't have justice when you have white supremacy, racism. And so therefore, the work is to eliminate the system that we're in and to come anew, evolutionary or evolution to humanity. That's what I can bring to the table right now. So, I mean, this has been a wonderful conversation to me and interview. Your thoughts are very, educational, and it flows out real well, way better than me, than how I can present, my vision, my perspective. So I just appreciate your time, and hopefully we could collaborate again and do some things.
Yes. Please. Anytime. Yeah. Thank you so much, friend.
You're welcome.
All right. Take care now.
You too. Don't go nowhere.
Okay.